And welcome back to my speedrun of getting my wife to divorce me. And welcome back to Devlog. In the last part I worked on level visuals, and in this part I work on fixing a pesky bug with the level design, a pesky bug with the level visuals, and a pesky bug with the non-inclusion of level backgrounds. The first thing I did was fix my game's wall climbing bug. In my game you can climb on funny walls. The issue with this is that there was a persistent bug in climbing of walls, in that if the collision detection had any errors, it would make the player fall off the wall. This is very simple to have because the only real errors for the wall climbing system is if you climb up the wall too fast or if you climb up the wall too slow. And instead of defaulting to finding a ledge that you can jump up, the game would instead default to finding nothing as the player was moving upwards. This caused a very bothersome error, being that the player, instead of jumping up after they have climbed on a wall, would instead just float downwards, or not being given the upwards velocity of an actual wall jump. To fix this, I had the player always defaulting to at least a Y velocity of 9 when exiting a wall, providing they weren't moving down the wall. This means even on an error or an incorrect collision, the player is still going to be vaulted up a wall for the vault amount. The issue is actually finding such a bug. The reason for this is because of the way that wall movement is coded. There are 4 different exit variables, at which point the player will stop climbing on a wall. This being if there is a vaulted surface above them, if there is no wall above them, if there is some incorrect movement where the player can't detect a wall anymore, or if there is odd collision on the wall. The reason it took me so long to fix is because I wasn't sure which of these were feeding back the error. And you will be happy to know that the error is in 3 of these 4 systems. So I have an override in all of these. If the player is at a Y velocity of above X amount, they will just be defaulted to jumping up the wall. Since this only happens when the player is moving up a wall and cannot detect the wall anymore, this really shouldn't cause any errors. The only error I could think it would cause is if the player was moving down a wall and then stopped detecting the wall and they were at a Y velocity height that was low enough to trigger a vaulting jump upwards. But at that point the player would have to be moving at a Y velocity of minus 0.1. So realistically, I doubt this will ever happen. The next thing I added was foreground elements to Pep-Pel. This is to make it so the foreground isn't so boring looking. I added multiple of these. I added the base version of the candy canes to the foreground, these being the candy canes that aren't sharpened into a horrifying point that impales Pep-Pel through her tummy. These are normal candy canes. I added these to the foreground sand because I thought they looked cute. I then added multiple elements of candy corn, wrapped sweets that are in a circular pattern, and jelly beans, and a waffle cone for an ice cream. Basically an assortment of random candies of random colours. I went with some basic shapes for these because I didn't want anything overly complicated and eye-catching for the foreground that the player may mistake for collision geometry or something that would confuse the player's feeble little brain. And also I thought these were just fine to draw, so I didn't really want to draw anything else. And also because these are going to be far and few in between in the level, so there's not going to be a whole lot of them placed in the level, just a few occasionally to make the foreground elements of the level look more eye-catching and interesting. The version of these that is going to have the main usage is the waffle cone and probably the candy cane, with the random circular candies and the jelly beans being smaller and intermittently added to random foreground elements throughout the level. My favourite of these to draw was the waffle cone for the ice cream. I originally was going to add an ice cream scoop to the level as well, but I thought the colour scheme for an ice cream scoop would not fit the level's visuals very well. I also enjoyed drawing the candied corn. As a frail old English lady, I have never once seen a candied corn in my entire existence, but I can only assume that they are a delectable and wonderful treat for all Halloween seasons. Next we have the background visuals. In a previous devlog I talked about the background visuals for the trash trail and how I made a fateful error, being that the level was too vertically inclined and therefore I had to make a background that was looping vertically. Luckily, in the desert, the level is more horizontally based and I don't need to make a background that loops vertically, or so I thought. The issue with the background being very flat, the level has a elevation change at 3 separate points, and at each of these points the player, if there is just one set of backgrounds, will no longer be able to see the majority of the background, this being the sand layer, pyramids, clouds, further cloud layer. If I kept the backgrounds as they are, it meant that the player at the start of the game would be seeing the very base of the sand, at the middle of the game they would be seeing clouds, and at the end of the game they would be seeing nothing. So I once again had to make a background layer that looped vertically. This issue of background design is so persistent that I may just make a lore element for Pep-Pel, being that all of the realms of Pep-Pel are on a vertical plane loop and they stack on top of each other, and that's why the backgrounds all look like this. For the backgrounds, I drew 2 sand layers. These are very simple, they are layers of sand, they look nice, they feel nice. I'm a big fan of them. Above this is a set of pyramids with cream on top of them. I like how these look as well. I kind of phoned it in with the pyramid bricking, being that they're just basic colours and shading, but I think it matches with the art style. If I had done the pyramid bricks any more detailed, I feel like they would be too distracting as a background element, because I want to keep background elements more simple so that the player doesn't get distracted by them or mistake them for geometry in level. Next we had the clouds behind the pyramid. I wanted to make this look like cotton candy, so they're very pink-like, but this was very easy to draw. I have a cloud brush in my drawing software, and I used a cloud brush to make a cloud. Clouds are pretty simple, just colour and layering to look like a fluffy blob. Then we have simpler clouds, which are in the air, they are clouds. Finally we had the cloud layer of the above ground, next level, surface, element, in-game. This is where the background elements will loop, so this leads into another set of sand which is positioned on top of this layer of clouds, and this loops twice to get to the end of the level. I'm a big fan of how this background elements looks. I enjoy the trash trail background elements, I enjoy the desert background elements significantly more. It was fun and creative to draw such a thing, it was surprisingly easy, I had a good old time. Finally we have the level's main menus. The game's main menus. Finally we have the game main menu. I might not have mentioned this in a previous devlog, but the visuals for the main menu are going to loop between a random selection of visuals from levels. So there's a desert version and then there's also a forest version currently, because those are the 2 levels. Currently the code for this is very simple, we just randomize between a set amount of dioramas for levels, but once the player actually has a save system and all the levels added, I will make it so that a level can only show up in this randomized pool once the player has beaten this level, which is very simple. I just check all save files, I check all levels beaten, and then if X level is beaten, we can add its visual diorama to the list of dioramas we can select for the main menu, and then it's just chosen at random the same way it normally would. This means levels aren't going to be spoiled by the main menu visual, and also I don't have to make unique art for the main menus. I can just reuse background elements that I have already drawn. And that's it for devlog. I was originally going to do coding for option menus, but I really wanted to draw backgrounds for the desert, mostly because it's fun, and secondly because I felt levels were a little bit ugly without a background element. The main issue with this is that the desert is very zoomed out to accommodate for hazards and other such things, but when there is no background element, it means that the game looks pretty ugly when there's just a giant pink blob for the background. So having a background element really aids to this, and also I wanted to draw the pyramids, mostly so because I wanted to draw the pyramids, almost exclusively because I wanted to draw the pyramids. In the next devlog I'm going to Probably give up on Pep-Pel and just make a different game, I think. Kind of bored now. Kind of don't feel like finishing this. Kind of just gonna play Destiny for a whole week and then get to Friday and realise I haven't done any work and then make a new game. I'm going to call the new game Zlep-Skal. You will play as little guy Zlep-Skal while you explore the cosmos, searching for the mystical 7 eggs of yore. These eggs grant divine power to any